Tourism is booming around the world, a $1 trillion industry annually and growing. The competition for those dollars is fierce, and Marriott Hotels is right in the thick of it. It's one of the world's largest hotel chains, offering more than 700,000 rooms across 4,000 properties in 80 countries and territories. It recently got larger, buying Canada's Delta Hotels for $168 million. One of Marriott's strengths is catering to every sort of traveler. The chain operates 18 brands across the entire range of pricing options. At the highest end, names like Ritz-Carlton and JW Marriott, and the more budget-conscious Courtyard by Marriott or Residence Inn. But it's not just the cost of a room that matters. Marriott and its president and CEO Arne Sorenson have been forced to adapt to a new type of traveler. The company is expanding its options in the rapidly growing economies of India and China and their burgeoning middle classes. And it's appealing to younger travelers that might forego traditional options like room service but expect free Wi-Fi and mobile booking. And it all comes against the backdrop of competition from the likes of Hilton and Intercontinental, making the fight for a larger piece of the tourism pie all the more difficult. I want to start by asking about your biggest challenge in the industry. It's a fast-moving one, lots going on. What do you think, from where you sit, is the number one thing you need to be thinking about?
Can I give you two?
Sure.
And I think this is maybe a Marriott lens as much as an industry lens, although it's not unlike, I think, what some of our competitors are going to. So one would be geographic expansion. While we're operating in about 80 countries today, we are growing much faster outside North America than any place in North America. And what that means is we've got to have people out there. We've got to have decision approaches that accommodate that. We've got to learn to be expert in the cultures where we're doing business, and that's a really fascinating thing to be part of. So the geographic expansion would be one. I think the second would be about younger travelers who are purely by demographics becoming more and more of who stays in our hotels every night. We get tired sometimes of hearing the phrase millennials. In fact, I had a bunch of millennials recently together to help us, and they said, quit calling us that. But even though we get tired of those phrases, there is a change which is underway, and we've got to make sure that we stay with that.
When we think about the challenges that might be affecting you, obviously maintaining a pace of growth and increasing revenue per room, et cetera, would be high on the list.
Yeah.
Your recent numbers show that you're both on sales and on profit. You're managing to do that.
Yep.
So what is it that you are doing that you're getting more out of what you've got and you're growing your market?
Well, our business model is really simple. So we have about 4,200 hotels open today, 715,000 hotel rooms, and we want to run those as best we can. So our metric in the hotel business is RevPAR, revenue per available room, and it really looks at the amount we charge for the room times occupancy. And so we're trying to drive RevPAR, and we're trying to drive it as fast as the economy allows it, and hopefully faster than what our competitors are able to do. The second lever is really about adding new hotels to the system. So last year we signed 100,000 new hotel rooms in 2014 alone around the world, 100,000 over a 715,000 base at year end. You can see that there's great percentage growth in that. Most of those hotels are not open yet. They'll open over the course of the next couple of years. But if we can add percentage growth in terms of new rooms to the same store growth on the first lever, we get 5 or 6 or 7%. On the first level, we get 5 or 6 or 7% on the second. You put those two things together, that means top line growth in the low double digits. And then if we can keep our expenses in control and have that drop to the bottom line, use our capital sensibly, it's a great business model.
One of the things that will change, no doubt, as millennials, I don't know what else to call them, do occupy your hotels, is their expectations of what should be free.
Right.
And I guess one example would be Wi-Fi, which
Right.
was a source of revenue for hotels for a long time, will no longer be a source
Yep.
of revenue as their expectations are very different.
Right.
How do you adjust? How do you keep that cost base down when you're actually losing on the revenue side?
Well, as of January this year, Wi-Fi is now free to every Marriott Rewards member booking direct in our hotels. And it costs you nothing to be a Marriott Rewards member. So if you want it to be free, you now have the tools to make it be free. And that's the case whether it's a Ritz-Carlton hotel or a Marriott or a Fairfield by Marriott or any one of our number of new brands. And our customers obviously demanded it. We wanted to make as much money as we could, as long as we could reasonably, but it was clear that we had to move in that direction. Now, it's as important, actually, that it be free is that it be fast. And so we've got to make sure that we've got bandwidth coming into the hotels, that it works in your guest rooms, that there aren't dead spots in the hotels, all of those sorts of things. And there's a lot of work underway in that space too.
As you mentioned, Marriott has kind of a tiered branding structure. How's that working for you? Is it fair to say that you've got sort of the luxury end, that kind of big mid-market, and also some that cater to sort of specialty needs?
Yeah, it's a spectacular success. So, and it's one of the things that Marriott pioneered. About 30 years ago, we added Courtyard, Residence Inn, and Fairfield to the Marriott brand. So that was our first generation, if you will, of multi-branding. And we thought then we ought to have a leading brand in every distinct place of the lodging market. So Marriott, which we call it upper upscale, it's sort of a lodging inside baseball term of art, I suppose. But 4-star might be a more common way of thinking about it. Courtyard was maybe a 3-star. Residence Inn was a longer-term extended stay product, and Fairfield would have been a 2+ star or something like that. The stars don't really work all that well. But we thought, so no matter what you're traveling for, we want to have a place for you to stay. No matter where you are in your career, we want to have a place for you to stay. And that has continued. Now, we added Ritz-Carlton in the mid-90s. One of the world's best luxury lodging brands, clearly. There's another good, strong one from Canada that we have a great deal of respect for. But it's a great brand, so we added that to our system. And since then, we have added a number of other brands, sometimes because we wanted very deliberately to have a series of lifestyle brands to go against our traditional brands. So in the same maybe price segmentation, but all with lifestyles.
We have seen in the hotel space technology work to your advantage, of course, with things increasingly like automatic check-in and sort of no human contact to get you to your room. But we're also seeing the flip side of that, which is hotels kind of exploring the idea of fewer in-room services. So room service, for instance, being removed from some hotels. What's the right balance from the point of view of a traveler who wants to be in a hotel? They want to be looked after, they want human contact, and yet you want to save costs and we want sort of not to be encumbered. Right. How do you get the right note?
I've heard 2 comments from folks in the lodging industry, each of which can be ridiculed almost. One was a high-end hotelier basically saying, our customers don't want to be able to use their mobile device to bypass the front desk. They want human contact. As if we have the power to say, no, you must interact with us whether you want to or not. I think that's madness. I think travelers want to have the ability to control when they interact with somebody and when they don't. So I think similarly, it would be madness to say, you're not going to be allowed to see a person. This is going to be an entirely automated hotel. You're going to have to check in with your device. You're going to have to open the door of your room with your device. You're going to have an automated checkout. You're never going to see anybody. I think that, there are a few hotels around the world that are trying a version of that, but that is not a broadly appealing thing.
Marriott is one of the best-known hotel brands in the world, but the company that offers 715,000 beds across the world comes from humble roots. What is now the Marriott Hotel Empire began as a simple root beer stand in Washington, D.C. in 1927. Founder John Willard Marriott wanted to capitalize on hot travelers needing a cool drink in a scorching Washington summer. It wasn't until 3 decades later that beds replaced root beer, and Marriott's first hotel opened in the Washington suburbs. Under the leadership of John's son Bill, Marriott grew to the hotel juggernaut it is today. He ran the company until 2012, when at the age of 80, he handed the reins over to Arne Sorenson, the first non-family member to run the company and just its 3rd CEO in nearly a century. With a strong family foundation and corporate culture to draw upon, Sorenson is looking to the future. The rapid rise of online lodging options from Airbnb and others has led some to speculate the traditional hotel business model is in danger. One of Sorenson's greatest challenges is countering this threat, and without changing the formula that made Marriott the success it is today. One of the biggest threats, perceived threats perhaps, to your industry is this disruption around the kind of technology allowing for Airbnb and other sort of lodging solutions. How are you responding to that? What's the right response?
Well, there are lots of responses to it. I think part of it is to remember who we are. We we do offer a really genuine, authentic welcome. We offer an experience which you can count on. So you're not going to end up in a sort of strange place wondering who on earth did I rent a room from or rent a bed from. Now that means if you're looking for adventure, you may not find quite as much of it, but you're also not going to take the same level of risk that you're going to find an experience that you don't like. We're obviously watching Airbnb and VRBO and a number of others who are playing in this space. And so far, it's been interesting. I think what we've seen is that they are stronger in the leisure space than business travel. I think they have been stronger in bringing new travelers into travel because they couldn't afford it before, and they're playing at a price level which is meaningfully below ours, for example. And you could say, well, isn't that a threat because they can get a room for less? But I think what we're seeing is the folks who've got the resources to spend a bit more to stay in a hotel are still preferring to do that. And it's a big world out there. So even as they've grown quickly in the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen occupancies not just get to peak levels, but continue to grow from that. So we are now trading at higher levels of occupancy than we've traded at in 15 years. And so there's, so far at least, there's clearly room for all of us to play in this space.
So on that front, how closely tied are your fortunes to general economic growth? In which case we would say you're probably looking pretty good in America, but everywhere else, question mark.
Economic growth is huge. But there are a few kinds of economic growth that are worth thinking about here. In most countries around the world, the bulk of travel is by their local people, right? So even our fanciest hotel in Shanghai today is majority Chinese business. Now, Shanghai would have a higher mix of international business than the Guangzhou or Harbin, maybe in the north of China, but it still would be mostly Chinese business. So we see that demand is going to be driven by the health of their economy, typically. U.S. economy is strong, therefore demand growth is strong in the United States. Exactly what you're talking about. U.S. should be a really good story going forward. You go to China, we obviously read a lot about lower growth rates in China, and you wonder, okay, well, is that going to be a big impact to you? There are some big advantages for us. China is trying to move from a production or industrial economy to a consumer economy. We are on the consumer side of the equation. China is also driving travel because travel is something their people want to do, and if they feel better about their lives, they'll feel better about the Chinese government. And therefore there's more outbound travel than there's been before. There's more travel within China than there's been before. And even if the Chinese economy grows at 5 to 7% instead of 7 to 9, say for the sake of discussion over the next decade, we will see that there's still hundreds of millions of new travelers in China that are staying in hotels in China, or they're going to Macau, or they're going to Bangkok, or they're going to Vancouver to experience the world. And so I think we will get a disproportionate share maybe of even a smaller growth than some other industries or some other segments of the Chinese economy. And I think that plays out in many markets in the world.
Although competing obviously with others hoping to do exactly the same thing. Who's your biggest competition in the hotel space? Who do you look at?
Well, we are blessed with a highly competitive business, and it's a place where there's constant innovation and change. And again, you look around different parts of the world, you see different competitors. Hilton is about exactly our size. I think I must concede that they were about 300 rooms bigger than we were as of the end of 2014. So we were 100 rooms shy of 715,000 rooms open, and they were a few hundred rooms over 715,000 room open. But we're about the same size. We're both growing aggressively. We both have a good portfolio of brands. So they would be the competitor we probably run into most frequently. But if you look at an India, or you look at a sub-Saharan Africa, or you look at China, we probably would pick somebody else as being our primary competitor in that market.
You are the first non-family member to run this company. What are the complexities of that? There must be some.
Fewer than you might think. I've been at Marriott for 18 years. I was CFO for about a dozen before becoming president, and president for a couple before becoming CEO. So it's not like I came in by parachute and suddenly landed in as a stranger to be the first non-Marriott as CEO of the company. But instead it was an evolution. And Bill Marriott, who is still our chairman, is a fabulous partner in all of this. Hugely supportive of my stepping into the job and continues on a day-to-day basis to offer whatever support he can. I think the most important thing is not to pretend I'm the same, because I'm not. My name is not over the door. I will never have the kind of celebrity that Bill Marriott had. That's perfectly fine with me. And I'll never pretend to be a family member or a founder of the company. At the same time, I'm deeply committed to many of the attributes of the way we've done business for the last decades. Very much intend to keep those, even as we ramp up change with new brands and this geographic expansion around the world and some new exciting things we're doing in marketing. So we can keep that old piece and very much, I think, launch into the next generation too.
That is, the perception would be that in a family business, there is a kind of a sense of ownership, but that goes to sort of an idea about the culture and the way things will get done that can sometimes make it hard for a CEO to sort of speak truth to that power. Yeah. Are there any changes that you envision for this brand in the years ahead that are radical enough that it's going to take a real kind of consensus effort to move it?
Yeah, I think we're changing as fast as any company in our industry is changing today, and I think we're changing as fast as Marriott has ever changed. And it's because the people have been turned on, essentially. I know you study innovation, and so it won't be a surprise to you, but people want to innovate. And if they're given permission, and in fact even encouraged to innovate, it's amazing what they can do. They get turned on, particularly folks who want to win. And Marriott has long been a place where folks say, we want to be the best hotel company in the world. We think we're the best hotel company in the world. Now, if we're seeing anything that gives us any threat at all, let's make sure we're doing the things in order to answer that threat and supersede it. And so we've got a team around the world which is turned on to grow in markets we've never been in before, to add lifestyle brands that we've never had before, to do things that we probably wouldn't have even thought of a couple of years ago.
All right, we're going to leave it there. We appreciate your time.
You bet. Thank you.